A very good evening, good afternoon, and even good morning to our wonderful ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to have all of you to join us for our closing forum for the 11th Biennial Xposition Contemporary Dance Fiesta. And I hope all of us have a wonderful, fruitful discussion about this particularly interesting topic that is very hold dearly in my heart. So let's welcome Miss Shanny and Miss Maggi.
That leads me to the next question about the present. You know, the pandemic, as you were both mentioning, it has really posed great challenges to the performing arts world and has really radically changed how dance is being presented and even the audience experience of viewing dance on a flat screen. So Danny, would you like to talk a little bit about the challenges of hosting this festival during pandemic, or like we were talking about post-pandemic era? I know adaptation is key. It's really vital during these unprecedented times. But if you can talk a little bit more about how you are navigating these difficult times and what are the direction you're bringing Xposition O towards?
Again, I have to say I'm very blessed because all along we always feel our work is like a playground. We are always very conscious about being creative. So whether it's pre-COVID or post-COVID or present, to be honest, it has not affected us much. That's something that I'm very, very happy to share. Not that we have to be boastful, because we are always constantly looking for new avenues to present and to engage our audience. So with the COVID coming, it just makes our work more clear in terms that how fluid our festival programming has been done for the last 20 years. It fits the real world now. You see, if you have traced our 20 years of record of our programming, I mean, we bring in big companies, we perform in big stage, even sometimes use City Hall 2,000 seating capacity. Even we challenge outdoor seating capacity. So our festival, the framework of the festival is a sponge, you know. So we can actually go and challenge big stages, and at the same time we can do very intimate show for 50 audiences. So we are always adapting to see what's the best way to engage live with the audience, even not live as well. So we have been doing online engagement, to be honest. So with the COVID coming, it just opened up more avenues because it's also timely for us, apart from just presentation. We also look at how well can we educate our audience. See, if an organization for festival has been around for 20 years, to be honest with you, sometimes if people ask me, where are your audience? I say, I'm not too sure because the world is changing. But I have a sense that someone is following us. Otherwise, you will not continue, right, year after year. But what I'm trying to explain is that how do we continue with that creativity to ensure that we have that freshness to embrace not only the artists, the companies, but also to fertilize the dance scene, which apparently right now for these 2 years seems like dying, right? Because a lot of times it's very much about funding. No funding, no work. But we are independent enough that no funding, we still continue. Like this Xposition O. We didn't get any funding for a festival of such, isn't it? And no funding can pay for such a festival of such. But why is it we still can execute, orchestrate? Because of really good partners who come in to understand and believe that we are building the capacity, not for now, but for tomorrow. So this is a very important signal for us to be creative, to really always looking at the prospect, you know, and also not just engaging audience now, but we also have to project what is the audience we're looking at 5 years or 10 years. 20 years ago, my audience now probably they're adults already when they were students, right? So how do we build that capacity? And to be honest, I was so proud that sometimes I meet some young adults and they say, hey, I've been to your show, I was in this. You can see how interestingly when you meet people who have been connected or engaged with you previously. So 20 years is not a short time. I'm sure I need time to go and find out who are my real supporters hiding somewhere and maybe appear, overwhelmed by certain situations and they come out, So I guess to look at what we have done is always be creative, and that's why this year's festival I'm so encouraged by our wonderful friend like Gottlieb is here, who actually arranged 3 companies for us. Very extraordinary. Nobody were able to get 3 companies and share their work so generously. And even we had her artists to conduct 2 workshops, and then we have a meet the artist dialogue. So you look at the programming, it's no longer just about bring a company and perform, but it's about what is the many layers of engagement processes that you believe to actually build that kind of relationship with the audience worldwide. I have to stress the word. From day one, we always talk about international dance festival, or even our company is a global dance company, because 20 years ago, people don't believe what I say. But now I think people should understand that the world is so small. We are always looking at audience worldwide. We don't need a pandemic to teach us that we have to digitalize. We don't need a pandemic to tell us that we have to engage worldwide, we have to tour worldwide. Agree? So I think all along, artists have the free will, freedom of reaching out to the world, freedom of reaching out to anybody that they can connect. So I think the real thing that I really want to stress about now, or even before or further, I think it's always about creativity, dare to dream, dare to imagine, and always, have a worldwide view, Otherwise, you see that a lot of times the festival is about for themselves, It's really about how they indulge in the kind of organization. So for me, I don't want to indulge in my festival. I want to make sure my festival is about giving. My festival is about answering the call of the artist or the companies, or the festival has its meaning for our local community. If not, what's the point of performing? I mean, now you see people sell tickets, they have difficulty in selling tickets, right? But then I'm so glad after all this while, when I have a big show, means that we do have audience coming in. I don't know how. I have to thank my people for being, praises all my teammates are very wonderful in getting people to come feel the theater. Because usually we perform big theaters. But I guess at the end of the day it's over time that consistency, which brings out that autocracy. I would say the word is authority in terms of contemporary dance, that we mean something in this field. Yeah. So continue to be bold, creative, imaginative, and just dare to dream. I think this is how to move forward for our festival.
Thank you. Well, I'm just going to do a deep dive into the meaning of festivals. So Maggie, if I can get you to maybe pick your brains a little bit about what your personal opinion about festivals is and how it has evolved over the years, especially with your experience working in Asia Pacific and Europe. Do they differ across the regions?
Right, good question. Yes, they do. They differ. Every country, it's different, actually. And the regions are different, but also the festivals are different, because you have pure dance festivals, okay, which are just festivals that program dance and dance-related activities. And then you have the multi-genre festivals, which are much broader scope. And so you'll have theatre, you'll have dance, like Avignon Festival or something like that. And as a dance company, we performed in both, dance festivals and the multi-genre festivals all over the world. And it's really quite fascinating. For me, I think the best festivals as a performer and as a choreographer, artistic director, guest of a company or a festival were always those festivals that you as a company were able to engage with the local communities. The fact that, if we could go into a festival, and we would perform, but we would also, yes, give workshops, but also we were invited to watch other companies. We would go to dialogues with other artists. We would meet local people. They were always far more interesting for me personally. And I think I have to say the best dance festival I've ever been to in my short, long, old career was the Carmiel Festival in Israel, and which it's in the north of Israel, and it's only 3 days. But the festival, the whole town, the whole city is alive with dance. No one sleeps. You don't sleep. Our first performance was at midnight. And we thought, And our next performance was at 11 a.m. the next day, and we thought no one will come to the 11 a.m. show. And wow, when we come out, everyone will just be heading home to go to sleep. But no, we headed out, and there were people doing different dances in the streets. There were hip hop dancing competitions. There were, the best male whatever dance competition. I mean, it was extraordinary. And seriously, I think everything sort of stopped around 4 a.m. and then everyone would wake up at 8 or 9 a.m. and then start again. And it was just, and we sold out at the 11 a.m. show. It was a slightly younger audience than the midnight show. And for me, that was just dance as a way of life, as a form of expression, it was, it touched all the boxes: social, aesthetic, dance, society, totally engaged and involved. And I have never forgotten that festival. And yet I've performed at the most prestigious festivals in the world, like Avignon, which was also exciting, of course, and you're in an amazing place. But it touches your heart. And I think dancers and dance people are very heart-centered people. And so for me, a good festival is about fantastic performances, but it's mainly about the people. Mm-hmm. So I hope that made sense.
Totally. Well, that's really inspiring, and it put me to shame, because here I am wondering, waking up at 2 a.m. to, engage in this conversation with you all. It's like something. But then, dancing until 4 a.m. is definitely breaks the record of everything. Yeah. So now let's talk about the future of dance festivals. Danny, if I can return to you. What are your hopes for Xposition now that you've done it for 20 years? So what's your vision for another 20 years?
I think it will continue to stay relevant. It touches people's heart. It touches the artist's heart. That's very important, because if the artists are not willing to give, they're not passionate about showing what they believe, there is no point for us to present another show. This is why this is the main criteria when I select performances, because I always hope that the artists have something to say. They have real voice, authentic voice. They want to communicate across boundaries. This is why I have this wonderful title, Celebrating Boundaries, because a lot of times we always like to say this A company from which country. That's for publicity's sake, or even just reporting for government funding sake, which country. And there's a kind of identity that we always like to demarcate that. But what we have to do is we have to celebrate diversity. We must celebrate diverse voices. We must also agree upon disagreeing. This is very important, but unfortunately, perhaps I'm from Singapore. So a lot of time we have to agree, based on a presumption that it should be all right. So I think festival it must be a point where we converge, have lots of ideas, lots of excitement, and it's about celebration of something. Whether it's to celebrate artists, like this time, you see, I have purposely planned to launch a book, not just to celebrate about how well we have achieved for a 20-year-old festival, but it's to celebrate the artists, the companies who have already contributed. And I'm so glad to see some artists have grown over the last 10 years, because when we received them, that was back then. But it's interesting for us to see what happened to them after 10 years later. Some became professors, some actually had a company, some companies have disbanded and reformed a new company. So I think we have the choice to look at the future development, not only about the festival, but over the artists and companies that we have supported along the way. So the harnessing effect of the festival is something I believe. And that's why whoever have come to my festival will agree with me that we give great hospitality to all our international artists come. I'm sure Maggie will agree, even from day one, by supporting all the 100 international artists coming to Singapore. We did our very best. Even that time we were so young, we were so poor, but we believe in treating artists with dignity and give them the best support and give them a memorable so-called stay, not just within the festival, but it's also within Singapore. So it's very important for them to have a sense of of what is the culture like, what is the taste of the food, especially a multi-ethnic city. So a lot of these things is a component that we always have to feel about human touch. So you can see what we have built so far, whether we present them in big or small stages, whether we engage them in dialogue, workshop, masterclass. It doesn't matter what I do, but it must be wholeheartedly that the artist is willing to give, at the same time, wholeheartedly that the audience willing to pay and come and watch. I stress again, pay and come and watch. Because the value of the artist is about they really have good audiences who come and appreciate. So even after 20 years, I must tell you honestly, I still hear, from our so-called local colleagues to say that audience development is tough for dance. But I guess it's a worldwide issue. And it's nothing new, right? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we still have the same problem. 20 years later, I think we still face the same problem. So I choose to move on, recognizing that it could be such a niche market, but yet, why don't we open up that possibility to harness and embrace more audiences outside from dance field? And this is why you see our works are very different, because our future plan is still the same as what we do now. Number one, the festival is always filling the vacuum in what the Singapore local dance scene cannot afford to give. That's why you see our programs are very fluid, because we are very spontaneous and we are always answering to the call and we are always on the ground. It's not like you plan 1.5 years, you book all the companies, and then 1.5 years later, the companies will definitely be presented. But I guess COVID will probably shift the mindset a little bit that they cannot do. They have to do long planning, but they have to review probably 3 to 6 months, especially now, maybe not 3 to 6 months. Every weekly you have to review the programming, because you never know whether they can fly in or not. So I guess this is something that we learn, and we are very happy that we have always been put on that brim of being robust, agile, adaptive, at the same time, take the risk. So this year's festival is so amazing. We cook it within 2 weeks. I have to use the word we cook it, because artists answer my call, agents answer my call, and they love it. They want it. So you see, the program has been structured because there's a relevance and it has meaning for all, not just for the artistic director or festival director. It's meaningless for me, right? It will be too easy for me just to say, I have the money, I will just select A, B, C, D, I'll just pay this X dollar, can you come and not? And that's about it, and that's how the real world works. But I think if today you want to engage the artists and the companies to be involved in the program development, I think that's a big skill set that a lot of programmers have to think about and learn about, isn't it? So this is what I'm hoping, to groom my next generation of Singaporean artists or producers, to really look at not just about what the festival format, what the festival wants to do, but it's about the company, the artists who bring their real self to the audience in Singapore or worldwide that we have. So this is why you ask me in the future what will happen to the fest. I don't know. In fact, to be honest, this year I was hoping to have a hiatus. I was hoping that maybe we just launch a book and then not to do any program. That was my original plan that I spoke to my boss. And they agreed. But then 3 weeks ago, I said, okay, no, I have artists who really wanted something. I have someone burning, very burning, send me, say, please, we like to be presented, we like to be heard, we like to be exposed, So, okay, what can we do? And I'm just amazed, I really have to thank my people for working so hard to shape things up so quickly, and present a complete set of festival programming, which I'm very happy for the last 2 weeks. If you happen to be on our Facebook, you'll know incredible designs, by my directors, all these things. And even the video by Maggi. So fantastic, right, Maggi? And it really sum up our 20 years, right, with all the nice posters. If you look at all the posters, you can imagine the stakeholders we have to engage just for that particular poster of that year. So it means a lot about that kind of willpower, not just about Danny Tan, no. It's a collective energy with the companies, artists, and also the people around. And also, of course, for the stakeholders, whoever want to pump resources, and the audience, a lot of times I'm so shocked that, yes, we have full house today, So Singapore, you must remember this is Singapore, So I'm just very honored that we are just a tiny little charity within a Singapore art ecosystem, and yet we are sparkling, and we are still around doing something unusual. I don't have to use the word extraordinary, I say unusual, but I suppose it must mean something to many people that involved. So I hope to continue that good good energy that is very important, especially now we just heard the news of COVID, isn't it? Omicron, is it something like that? You know. So again, this news. So what happened? What does it mean that a lot of people have to pull their brakes already? You know, a lot of the program have to shift it instantly. So for us, life goes on. You know, so it's a very different mentality that my team and I have for this current situation, which we're enjoying our time, to be honest with you.
That's great. Maybe you'll have to give a workshop about how to cook a dance festival in 2 weeks.
I think I have to recall, 20 years ago, I did give art management programs to LaSalle Quality Arts. Maybe it's about time for me to be a lecturer, to share my expertise. I mean, this is very important. I hope more Singapore institutions will recognize our wealth of knowledge, our worldwide view, and really recognize Singaporean talents. Even I have wonderful people with me like Fraser, Linia, they're with me for more than 15 years or 20 years. Both of them, just to share, Linia and Fraser are here. These are my wonderful two ladies that we supported them to do their masters, at QUT. Teresa, hi, Teresa. Teresa also graduated from QUT, isn't it, with a master's degree. So we have quite a number of friends from QUT here. So you see, what was our vision in 2010 that we supported? After my doctorate, we supported two young ladies to go and embark on the master's degree and came back to our company, and we boomed. And we offered our support. So I think it's about that multi-layer of vision and support system that we have within the organization. And now they are very wonderful, well-established choreographers and performers. In fact, they should shape their festival and not me anymore. In fact, they should run their own dance company. And that's why you see the entire organization is growing very extraordinarily. I use the word now because our people should be ready, because they're armed with qualification, they're armed with experiences, they run all my festivals. To be honest with you, for this festival, I'm just like directing only. I don't do any operational work. It's all done by Fraser, Kelvin, So I'm just blessed that I have the opportunity to play with whatever things I can, So I hope I can have successes soon to drive the festival to the next height.
I'm sure. Well, Maggie, if I can return to you about the future of dance, would you like to talk a little bit about where you envision dance to be?
Well, it's a very difficult situation at the moment. And I know that lots of companies, like, for example, I was looking at a documentary yesterday with the new artistic director of the Australian Ballet, and how they got their shows ready and then suddenly everything closed down again, and then they get they can't keep doing that really, ultimately, because the dancers lose focus, they get depressed about it. I mean, you can just dance in your lounge room for how long? How long can classes be given on video without that interaction? I mean, when I first started working with video in my dance performances, I always I kept saying to the videographers and to the people I was working with, the video needs to just be another character. It cannot dominate or take over the choreography. I don't want people to watch the video and not watch the dancers. Now, technology is fantastic, and what Danny's done here is great because it's kept the company alive, it's kept people working, it's kept all that. But how long? I don't know. I know that a lot of festivals, for example, Les Étés de la Danse in Paris, they're taking it outside, but they can only do that in summer. Singapore at least has the opportunity that the weather, yes, it rains a lot sometimes in the year, but you can take work outside a lot more easily than you do here. And so a lot of festivals that I see at the moment, that seems to be their only solution. Take it outside or have big screens and people watch, I mean, some great things have happened. You watch dance on screen. In Paris, they had an apartment. No, it was in Italy. I'm sorry. the town mayor, if you like, he hired some enormous video screens. This is in the pandemic, and he drove the video screens into the middle of a series of apartment blocks, and he showed movies, he showed dance films, he showed all these sorts of things. So is that the way forward? I really don't know.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult time, and I know dancers are resilient. I know dancers are, are so flexible. Excuse the pun. But there comes a time when dance is something that I still believe works the best when it's in front of an audience. You get that heart-to-heart feeling, and it's a reality. How do we go forward? I don't know. I'm still optimistic, even with this new virus coming out, Omicron or whatever it's called. They're saying, we all have to wait, but they're saying it actually doesn't make people as sick. It's so it may just be like a common flu type virus, but it's very infectious. But countries are being super cautious, and you understand why, So who knows? I mean, let's see who's still around at the end of this pandemic, because I'm sure a lot of the festivals that currently exist will no longer exist, quite frankly. The big ones that get government funding will continue to exist, but the smaller ones that were doing a lot of the heartland, I don't think will be able to survive, quite frankly. So, again, congratulations to ODT, because they are and have always been so independent in that sense, and kept finding ways to survive. And, as Danny's admitted, he's thriving at the moment. He's playing in this wonderful playground, which is very refreshing. I needed to take a sabbatical for 2 years
Come to Singapore. This is why I'm very encouraged, because we have our beautiful home, that we always feel the need to actually build our in-house capabilities over the years, to be honest. So it has taken us a long time to recognize and reconcile what is our needs in the long run. So the pandemic has given us some breathing space to really put things into perspective. And also this 20 years for the Xposition, similarly, is also a good breakout time for us to really think carefully what does it mean? That's why Shanny asked a very relevant question. What's this festival? What does it mean? So I feel at the end of the day, it still has to celebrate human mankind, because it's about the human and human touch, human and human interaction. If not, the festival has meaningless, in terms of its appeal. So we are very blessed. The festival is independent. We do not have to bother about the KPI, about how many countries, how many companies, at what specific slots, we have to fight for certain limited venues. So you can see my festival is performing anywhere, everywhere in Singapore, right? So we have choices. That is very important. And for our companies, we also have choices. Even the format, you can actually have a workshop for 50 dancers. You can also workshop for 5 dancers, even 1 dancer. To be honest, that's not my priority. My priority is the real engagement and the real inspiration that we can build upon and continue to build that capacity along the way. So it's like holding hand to hand. It's just like how Maggi has hold my hand along the way, and then I grow. Not easy. That interaction, that communication, that response. Even through this series of interviews that we have for one another, it's so much of wisdom that has been developed. Even today, it's such a pleasure to see old friends, and also have this conversation. How nice for people to sit down and have a real conversation, and this is something I feel very essential now. This is why we'll put in the effort just to ensure that the festival has one key component, which is global sharing, anything. So this is why I'm so thankful for this session here to close our festival for this series. Yes, Shanny, please.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Jenny and Maggie, for those concluding remarks. And, you know, to keep our optimism up and our love for dance for sure, to keep it going and to really center it on human relationships and sincerity, integrity, like those qualities that we were talking about for the past hour.